Regina, give me the hand claps. Okay, so we are in the book of Exodus. We have been talking about everything that's been going on with Exodus. We went from Genesis, and now we are about to exit out of some stuff. So tonight, I'm gonna take you from the beginning of Exodus up into the plagues. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the plagues tonight. But before we talk about Egypt, let's talk about us.
Huh.
What do you turn to when life gets overwhelming? What do you reach for before you start praying to God? What do you do? What are your options look like? When something you're facing comes to you, do you immediately go to God or do you start going into fight or flight mode and you start figuring it out? You start figuring out how to pay the bill or how to rob Peter to pay Paul, or you figure out, okay, well, if I could do this, then I can get it on the back end. What convinces you that if you just have this, you finally feel okay? And we're going to talk about ultimately counterfeit power. We're going to talk about counterfeit problem. Excuse me, power. And we understand, we hear the story of Egypt and the children of Israel and how they were slaves in Egypt and how they were oppressed for 400 years. And we hear how they, were consumed by the Egyptian culture at that time, which was idol worship. But sometimes we don't see ourselves in that. So tonight we're going to see ourselves in that. And we're going to see that counterfeit power is subtle. It's very subtle sometimes. It's not always loud, but it's very subtle sometimes. So before there was an Egypt, before there was a Moses, before Israel cried out to God, and before the plagues hit, God spoke to Abram. Now, we've already done our research with Abram, right? The father of faith that God called faithful. And God spoke to Abram in Genesis. And he said, then the Lord said to Abram that his descendants would live as strangers in a foreign land where they would be oppressed as slaves for 400 years. But God promised that he would punish the nation that enslaved them and that Abram's descendants would ultimately come out with great wealth. God saw the oppression before it happened. This was so long ago. He told Abram this. God is literally prophesying to Abram what is going to come of his lineage. God set a limit of their suffering. He said they're going to be suffering for 400 years. So God shows that he does allow for seasons of suffering. God promised justice and deliverance as well. He promised that he would punish the nation that enslaved them. And God also promised restoration and wealth. And we are going to see how God fulfilled his promise. Now, before we get started, I need to see some emojis in the chat. I'm going to look over here at my tablet. God changed Abram's name to Abraham to highlight what promise. Put a tree emoji if you think it's God promised that he will be the father of many nations, or put I believe this is a suitcase emoji if God promised that he will travel a long journey to freedom. I want to see some emojis. Okay, I'm seeing a tree. I see a Christmas tree. Come on, Christmas tree. All right, two people, three, four people. Come on. Okay, amen. Yes. So I'm gonna build you up to how do we get to the plague? Sometimes we want to just open the Bible and get to a story, but we got to go back to understand how do we even get here? And this is what God said. This is my covenant with you. I will make you the father of a multitude of nations. What's more, I'm changing your name. It will no longer be Abram. Instead, you will be called Abraham, for you will be the father of many nations. Now, remember, Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob and Esau. And then remember, Jacob stole the blessing from Esau and got the promise. So now Jacob is living through the blessing of what God promised Abraham. So Israel moves into Egypt. Who's Israel? Do we know? Do we remember from our study who's Israel? Is Israel a place? Is it a thing? Who is Israel? What is Israel? Somebody either put it in the chat or come off of mute and tell me what is Israel? When we say Israel moves into Egypt, what am I talking about?
God's people.
Okay, God's people. Give me even go up a little higher. Give me lowest common denominator of that. Jacob. There we go. Remember, after Jacob wrestled with God, he said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed." Remember, God changed Jacob's name, which initially meant heel grabber or trickster, to Israel. God governed. So God changed his name to mark his covenant identity with Jacob. God marked Jacob with a new name to establish a new people. So when we say the children of Israel, we're ultimately talking about the 12 children that Jacob had, the 12 boys that Jacob had that represent each tribe. Good job, y'all. Y'all better know this. So God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said, "Jacob, Jacob, here." And he said, "Here I am." Jacob replied, "I am God, the God of your father." He said, "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make your family into a great nation there. I will go with you into Egypt, and I will surely bring you back again. And Joseph will be there to close your eyes when you die." Joseph being one of his sons, we'll get into that. So before the children of Israel, as they're traveling, Jacob is taking his family. We going to Egypt. We traveling. They lived good. Pharaoh gave them the land of Goshen. It was the most fertile, spacious, and protected land in Israel in Egypt, excuse me. They had that VIP status. They look, this y'all land, y'all have fun. Y'all produce as much as you want to. They had honor, they had respect, they had provision. They also had economic security when they went. In Genesis 47, Pharaoh told Joseph, "Give your family the best of the land and have them oversee my livestock." And we know back in this day, livestock was your currency. Livestock is where you had your pride in. So the more cattle and the livestock you had, that showed who you were as a family, right? So are you, poor or are you well off? And so he gave him access to a well fertilized land. They were free to marry, build families, they grew their nation, and they ultimately lived in peace. They were connected to Joseph's authority because we remember, and I'm not going to go too far in it because we kind of discussed it already. Remember when Joseph and his brothers put him in the pit? We know that story about Joseph in the pit. He ended up in the palace. So this is that Joseph we're discussing, okay? So Joseph ended up in the palace. So by the time his family came, because it was about to be a famine, he took care of his family. God set it up like that. So let's talk Exodus. Let's get into the first chapter of Exodus. Exodus opens up by reminding us how Israel got to Egypt, right? Jacob, whom God renamed Israel, came to Egypt with 70 family members. The sons who became the 12 tribes. But remember, Joseph was already in Egypt, serving in a high authority and protecting his family during the famine. So Joseph's already up in Egypt. He has a high role. He's able to ration out things. He's making calls. He's that guy. Now remember, these are all the children. We talked about this when we went over the Mizpah covenant. Jacob had children with Leah and Rachel and some of their servants. But Joseph, we have down here, Joseph. This is a son from Rachel. Remember when Rachel was getting jealous because Leah was having all them babies, and God finally remembered her cry and blessed her with a child? That was with Joseph. She had Joseph and Benjamin. She ended up dying while having Benjamin, but Joseph is from Rachel's seed. But we're going to focus today on the Levi tribe, which Moses and Aaron come from. So, there we go. So after so long, let me go back here. So after so long, Joseph ends up dying. and there's a new pharaoh that is in charge. He has no idea about Israel. He has no idea about the power that Israel had, what the pharaoh before him promised him the land. All he knew was that they multiplying rapidly. They are having a lot of children, and you know what? One day they gonna outgrow us. And if we go to war, they're gonna go against us and beat us and take over our land. We cannot have that. So we got to stop this thing right now. So the new pharaoh enslaved them and forced them into harsh labor. And when they didn't slow their growth, he ordered every Hebrew baby boy to be killed. So the first time he ordered them to be killed, he told the midwives, "Go to the houses of the Israelites, and when the women give birth and you see it's a boy, kill him." But the midwives feared God, so they're like, "Nah, we're not gonna be able to do that because we kill them, we get killed." It just gets too tricky. So they were allowing the babies to be born. So Pharaoh's like, "Hold on, why are the boys still being born? They're still flourishing. They're still, having so many kids." The midwife was like, these Israelite women, they have these babies so fast. By the time we get there, the babies is already here. So he like, "All right, okay, fine." Then when they get here, throw the boys in the river. You can keep the girls. The girls can stay, but you need to throw the boys into the river. And this starts the process of the new Pharaoh enslaving the children of Israel. They're no longer this happy society who's growing. They're now living in fear of their life. Exodus 1 7 through 14, and just summarizing, the Israelites grew rapidly, becoming numerous and strong in Egypt. The new Pharaoh rose to power who knew nothing about Joseph. So think about it. We live in 2025. If I say, "Hey, do you know about Theodore Roosevelt? What was his policies as the president of America?" You're gonna be like, Theodore, what does he even look like? Right? So that's kind of the same thing. It's been so much time that now we have leadership coming in that no longer remember the people that were there. All he know is that these people are growing too much and that it's a threat to my land and a threat to me if we go to war. Pharaoh feared that the Israelites' strength and plotted to control their growth. The Egyptians enslaved them with harsh labor and ruthless demands. Now, the Bible says that, let me go back to this one. I'm so sorry. Okay. So the Bible said that they made them make mortar, and mortar was a clay, water, and straw. So almost like a cement at that time. But they didn't have shoes. They weren't mixing it with these big old, machines we have right now. They're stomping in it, they're stepping in it. And mortar, they were mixing this in 110 to 120-degree heat. No shoes, no shade, no break. Their bodies were exhausted before the day even started. And the materials tore their skin, right? You think about you stepping on some type of straws and you trying to mix all this stuff up, you're going to have open skin. And with that, dirt starts to get in your skin and you start getting infected and you start having pain. And this mortar that they carried, it was also for the bricklayering. So Pharaoh wanted them to build something. And so it was to make the bricks, and also was the slab to keep the bricks together. Now, each brick weighed about 3 to 10 pounds, and the wet clay itself weighed even more. They had the men, they had the women, and even the children were forced to carry the loads. Like I said, this caused them to have muscle strains, spinal damage, exhaustion. They would even collapse. And Pharaoh got so cold with it, he was like, "You know what? The men that were in charge of making sure that the Israelites were working," he was like, "Don't even give them no more straw. Make them go find their own straw, but they still need to produce the same amount of work." And the Israelites like, "Now we have to go amongst the land to find this straw. How are we gonna do that and give you the same amount of work?" And Pharaoh like, "Figure it out. That ain't got nothing to do with me. Figure it out." He was making their lives so difficult. He was literally trying to break them. They had no rights, they had no protections. And like I said, the Egyptians ruthlessly made the Israelites work as slaves. They made their lives bitter with hard labor and brick and mortar. Now, we're Exodus 122. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all the people: throw every newborn Hebrew boy into the Nile River, but you may leave the girls. So remember, I told you the midwives were to watch the babies. And if they were having a boy, they were supposed to kill him. But because they didn't, he said, okay, when they get here and you know that it's a boy, throw him in the Nile River. We cannot have them continuing to grow. Now, this brings in our boy Moses, right? So, right at the moment when Pharaoh's oppression was at its worst, where the children of Israel are crying out, God was already preparing a deliverer. And I think sometimes we get in situations in life where it's like, Lord, you don't hear me? You don't hear me crying out. You don't see that I'm not making it. You don't see that I don't have the confidence to go forward with this. You don't see that how they're treating me on the job. You don't see that I'm being, treated unfairly. God sees it all. He hears it all. And in this situation, he was producing a servant that would come out to be able to rescue them. But sometimes we have no idea what God is doing in the background. We think like, well, he ain't listening, he ain't hearing, he quiet. We don't. No, he hears everything. Y'all gonna see. Y'all gonna see. So Exodus 2 shows, like, again, Pharaoh, throw them all in the Nile River. I don't care. There was a Levite woman that gave birth to a son during Pharaoh's decree to kill the boys. Moses. She hides him after she gives birth for 3 months. But once she's no longer able to conceal him, she places him in the basket and she rolls him down the Nile River. Exodus 1:7-8 says, then the baby's sister approached the princess. Should I go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? She asked. So what happened is she put Moses in the Nile River and pushed him down. Moses' sister is looking to see where Moses lands, right? She's following her brother. She noticed he lands in some rubble, and Pharaoh's daughter is coming down to the Nile River, and she sees the baby and she feels bad for him. And she's like, I want to keep the baby. Moses' sister sees this, runs down and say, hey, do you want me to find one of the the Hebrew women to take care of the baby? And she's like, yes, can you nurse the baby until, it's I'm able to take care of it because, breastfeeding at this time, right? Can you? And Moses' sister ends up giving Moses back to his mother. And the princess pays for this nursing. So eventually Pharaoh's daughter adopts Moses as her own son, and she names him Moses, which means I lifted him up out of the water. Moses then grows up in Pharaoh's household, but he never truly forgot his identity. Remember, he was still raised with his mother, and then he was brought over to Pharaoh. So as many years later, Moses is older, and he goes out to see how his people are being treated, and he went out to visit them. So he like, let me see what's going on out here. And he saw how they were forced still into this labor. They're still making this mortar. They're still exhausted. They're still being beaten. And he sees one Egyptian beating one of his fellow Hebrews. So he looked to the left, he looked to the right, and he killed the Egyptian that was beating the Hebrew. And he hid his body in the sand. Now, the next day, Moses goes back out to visit his people again. Moses chilling, he killed him an Egyptian, got to do what I got to do. And he saw two Hebrew men fighting. He's like, hey, why are you beating up on your friend? They like, I know you're not talking. Didn't you just kill that Egyptian man yesterday? Who appointed you to be our judge and our prince? Are you gonna kill us like you killed him? You gonna do that like you did to him? You gonna kill us? And Moses is like, oh, they saw me. Okay, so they saw that I killed him. And he knew it was about to get back to Pharaoh. And if it got back to Pharaoh that he killed one of the Egyptians, Pharaoh was going to come for his head. And guess what happened? Pharaoh heard about it. And he tried to kill Moses, but Moses ended up fleeing, and he went to live in the land of Midian. And this is where he finds his wife and he has his child. Now, years have passed. Moses over here chilling in Midian. He chilling. He got his family. He got his herd. He got everything that he needs to do. Nothing too crazy. At this time, Egypt, the old Pharaoh died. Now, I keep saying the word Pharaoh and I keep saying new Pharaoh. Think of Pharaoh, the name Pharaoh, as president, king, or prime minister. It's not a person, it's a position, right? So now we're working on the third president, as you would say, right? And Moses is over in his land chilling, and he goes to walk his cattle into the wilderness. And this is when he sees the infamous burning bush. Moses had been gone from Egypt for about 40 years. He had a new life, a new family, new identity as a shepherd. He's a shepherd. I'm out the way. I'm not in the king's palace. I'm out the way. He thought he was forgotten until he saw that burning bush. God knew exactly where to find him, just like God knows exactly where to find us. And where did God find him? In the wilderness. If we could be honest, a lot of times we pray more when we feel like we're in our wilderness season. Let's just be very honest. Sometimes we dig in our Bible a little bit deeper when things are a little bit deeper. But when we're having a good time and money coming in and people acting right at the job, the car got new brakes, we got new tires. Hey, but let a diagnosis hit. Let somebody try to put mud on your name. Let somebody come against you unfairly. Oh, you know how to get up in that word. So to me, this is just showing like how God meets us, even in those places of the wilderness, how he even at this time, a miracle. So Moses is like, look at that burning bush. And it's not burning up. It's just on fire. Let me go check out what's going on over here. Now with the emojis, I'm gonna keep y'all involved. What did God tell Moses to do before he stood on the holy ground? Did he give me a sandal emoji if he told him to take off the sandals? Or give me the bow emoji if he told him you need to bow before you talk to me in this burning bush, you need to bow. Let me see y'all emojis. This y'all turn. This one y'all come in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I got a chancla. I got one chancla. Y'all still with me? Okay, come on, Kay. Kay said I would have took off my heel. I would have to take off my heel. Yes, absolutely. He said this is holy ground. And the reason why he told him to take off his sandals, this was a sign of reverence, of respect. Okay. Do not come any closer, the Lord warned. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. And the Lord spoke to Moses. I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I am aware of their suffering. I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and led them into a fertile and spacious land flowing with milk and honey. And I know sometimes we think like, oh my gosh, so was the water fountains made of milk and honey? It really just speaks to it being a land of much like green land, like you can grow crops, your cattle can survive, right? Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people of Israel out of Egypt. That's what God told Moses. So Moses was like, hold on now. Hold on now. Give me a second. Because I'm chilling. I'm over here chilling. And you want me to lead your people out of what if they don't even listen to me? What if they say that like God didn't appear to you? How am I supposed to, combat that? So God gives him three ways. He said, okay, you're a shepherd. Let me see the staff you're holding. Throw it on the ground. Moses throws it on the ground, turns into a snake. Moses like, uh-oh, whoa, hold on now. And God's like, grab it by its tail. He grabs it by its tail and it turns back into a staff. That's the first sign. So if they don't believe you, show them this. Second, Moses, put your hand in your pocket. Take it out. He takes it out. It's white, which I believe they said it like leprosy, a really bad disease on his hand. And God said, put it back in your pocket. He puts it back in his pocket. He says, now take it out again. It's healed like the rest of his body. Show them that. If they still don't believe you, show them that. And he said, and last, if they still don't believe you, go to the Nile River, get a cup, pick up some of the water in the Nile River, pour it out, and it will turn into blood. Okay. So these were the three signs that God gave. But Moses is still like, you don't want to, you sure you don't want to, you want me to go? Like, I mean, but even like if they don't like used to like for like, because I don't even speak right, like I got a speech impediment. So like why would you like you don't want nobody else to go? And God's like, no, I'm sending you. And I know sometimes we get into these questions and we be like, everybody raise your hands and tell me if you saw a burning bush and God was speaking through you through a burning bush, would you still be scared to go? Or would you go? And I'm sure 10 out of 10 people would say, I would go, but we don't go now. God is still speaking to us now and we don't go. God says give, we don't give. God says speak to that person. We don't want to speak to that person. We're shy. God says pray. We don't want to pray. So what's your burning bush? What has God made so obvious to you in your life that this is nothing but a miracle? This has to be God. And maybe you're still missing it. And I always love to give grace when I'm reading these stories of people in the Bible, because outside looking in, I'm like, man, if I would have saw a burning bush, I'd have been like, Lord, where we finna go? Because if you could do that, can I have some of that fire on the way? Can I, that's just me. But that's what we do. So again, Moses, like, I'm not good with my words. I, like I get tongue tied. I stutter a little bit. Like I just got a speech impediment. Like, nah, like don't send me. Like, Lord, can you please just send somebody else? And how many times do we ask the Lord, Lord, please send somebody else? I don't want to go. Please send somebody else, Lord. Just this time. I'm gonna do it next time. We are next time type of people. Next time you ask me, I'll do it.
Talk about it.
But what is the saying? Why put off tomorrow what you can do today? Oh, I got you next time, girl. I promise you. No, next time they ask, I got you. I got you. But you know what? Send somebody else this time. Send somebody. God's like, nah, 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 because you're starting to make me mad. You're starting to upset me. And the Lord became angry with Moses. He said, all right, all right, all right, all right. What about your brother Aaron? He's actually coming to see you right now. Aaron, he speaks good. He's a Levite. He speaks good. And look, he's on the way to meet you now. He'll be the delegated speaker. I'll tell you what to tell him, and then he'll tell the people. So God gave him a way out. That goes to show that what's on you is on you. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I'm so sorry, baby boy. Whatever is on you is on you. God may send help, but he said, I want you to do it. I put this in you to do it. I'll send help, but guess what? You still have to get it done. And then God was angry. I don't want to make God angry, especially in the First Testament, the Old Testament. We don't want to make God angry. This is before Jesus came and God was struck down. But God, gave him his brother Aaron. Aaron will be your spokesman to the people. He will be your mouthpiece, and you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say. And take your shepherd staff with you and use it to perform the miraculous signs I've shown you. Now, let's just get into the characteristics of Aaron and Moses really quick. God tells Moses to pay attention because he's giving him authority before Pharaoh, right? And Aaron is acting as his prophet. So everything Moses says, I'm going to tell you, Aaron. And then Aaron is going to tell everybody. Moses is to speak God's commands to Aaron, and Aaron will speak them to Pharaoh, telling him ultimately God's mission, let my people go. God warns that he will harden Pharaoh's heart. So his signs and wonders can be multiplied in Egypt. Even with the miracles, Pharaoh will still refuse to listen. So God will bring judgment on Egypt and rescue Israel, okay? Now, you see how Moses is dressed and how Aaron is dressed? This is important in culture. In the Israel culture, they gave visual clues. So you'll see Aaron's garment is a little bit more, let's say, flourished. You know, he was a Levite. So he represented holiness. And later on in Exodus, God actually tells Aaron what he should be wearing. So you'll see like the holiness to the Lord on his crown. You'll see some of the things that he has on. God put that together because what it represented was it marked him as a mediator between God and his people. So they were set apart visually. Moses was just a shepherd. He just he just flamboyant. Yes, decorated. Thank you, Lori. Exactly. That's what Aaron was, flamboyant and decorated. And Moses is just a shepherd. I haul in cattle, right? I'm just regular. How many times do we look at people? Oh my gosh, I want to be like them. Oh my gosh, I want what they have. Oh my gosh, I see what God is doing for them. Oh, they got that new car. Oh, they got that new house. And Moses is the one. And I'm not saying Aaron was not, but I'm saying Moses ultimately, if Moses would just say, okay, send me, Aaron wouldn't have needed to go. But Aaron came along because Moses was afraid to speak. So he sent help. But ultimately, we would look at Moses like, look at this shepherd. Look at this guy. Oh my gosh, he's dirty. Like he just has regular garments on. Oh, hey, Aaron. How you doing? You know, that's how we treat people sometimes. And in this society, it was literally just showing who led, who interceded, who performed sacrifices, and who speaks on behalf of God. Now, the assignment. We all know now Moses and Aaron, brothers. Now we need to understand the assignment. God did not just send them to talk to Pharaoh. He wasn't just like, hey, go talk to Pharaoh and just tell him like, I'm not really feeling what he's doing to my people. We gonna head about. He sent them to expose every counterfeit power Egypt submitted to, every counterfeit that Egypt trusted in. So we're going to introduce the plagues. And I know everybody's heard about the plague. And I have a question for you. I want to see. God said, for I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. I want you to pay attention to this sentence. And against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. Now we're going to talk about counterfeit power. Counterfeit power is anything that promises what only God can give. It may look spiritual. It may look wise. It may look like strength. It may look like it could even save you, but it cannot save you. It cannot deliver you. It cannot tell the truth. It can only get so far before it cracks. Egypt bowed to counterfeit power for hundreds of years. So God said, I'm going to go against all the gods of Egypt. So this brings me to the plagues, the 10 plagues. With the sign of hands emojis, how many people have heard of the plagues?
What emoji do we do this time?
You just do any emoji. Yeah,
Oh,
thumbs up. Give me a clap. Give me, just, make sure y'all still up with me. Okay, so we've all heard of the 10 plagues. We're going to go through each of these plagues, but I want you to see something. I will execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt, for I am the Lord. We just read that, and I want to keep saying this. Do you know that the 10 plagues were not random? God could have just flooded all of Egypt and called it a day. Well, he said he wouldn't flood the earth. Okay, so he could have just burnt it up. He could have did whatever he wanted to, right? He could have just got them up out of there. The 10 plagues were not random. God sent the plagues to go against the very thing, the very idols Egypt believed in. The 10 plagues represent 10 gods that Egypt served. Y'all with me? We're going to go through them.
It's good. It's good.
So the first god, Happy, the god of the Nile River. The god of the Nile River, Hapi, represented life, fertility, provision, and agriculture. The Nile was the only reason for Egypt's civilization. This was their pride. This is where they got their water supply. This is where they had their food source, their transportation system, their agriculture, their economy, their identity. Remember, Egypt was a desert. So every year the Nile would flood and it left behind this rich black soil called silt. Now, silt created wheat, barley, flax, figs, fruits, vegetables, and Egypt was a powerhouse. This also, the Nile, when it flooded, I'm able to now cross the river on my boat. I'm able to have people ship stuff in. I ship stuff out. We're able to trade. Now it's military transport. Oh, we're going to go get them, or we see them coming. It was also a connection between the upper and the lower Egypt. So they worshiped Happy because without the Nile, they didn't have any drinking water. They didn't have irrigation. They didn't have agriculture. They didn't have settlement. So they would worship Happy by holding parades. They would sing hymns. They would offer dances to Happy. They gave sacrifices and they decorated their boats with flowers. It was literally a nationwide celebration. Every time the Nile would flood, they would say, "Oh, Happy did this." What God do? God instructs Moses to tell Aaron to stretch out his staff over the waters of Egypt. Now, I'm not going to mention this, but just keep this in mind. Every time I go to a plague, Moses has gone to Pharaoh and said, "Hey, this is what's going to happen if you don't let God's people go." And Pharaoh hardened his heart every single time. So I'm not going to say that every time, but just understand each plague, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and was like, "Hey, God said he about to do this. Can you let my people go?" And Pharaoh's like, "Nah, you good." So the first one, water to blood. God instructs Moses to tell Aaron to stretch out his staff over the waters of Egypt, turning every source of water into blood, even down to the water they held in their homes and stuff. Those turned into blood as well. And then the Nile became a breeding ground of death. The fish died, and it also made the water undrinkable. We can't drink this now. The Egyptian magicians also imitated the same thing. So Aaron raises his staff, it goes to blood. Pharaoh like, "My boys can do that too. Don't trip. My boys can do that too." Grabbed his boys and they did the same thing. But what you will notice in counterfeit power is that instead of making the situation better, they made it worse because guess what? The water that you did have, you turned it into blood. Why you didn't turn it back into water? Since your boys is them ones, why didn't you turn it back into water? Because that's what counterfeit power does. It's able to imitate, but it's not able to create. And what God did, he
Say that
struck
again. Say that one more time.
what counterfeit power is able to do is able to imitate, but it's not able to create.
Oh, Jesus.
So instead of going to the water and saying, "Oh, the water's back to normal," they put even more burden on themselves. Oh, we could do that too. That's pride. What does the Lord say? Pride before destruction, right? We could do that too. Now the water we did have in the jug, we can't drink because you wanted to show them that you can do it too. So that was the first sign. Pharaoh was like, "That's nothing. I don't care. Whatever." And so God showed that he was their source. I'm your source, not this Nile River, not Happy. And the river then became a curse instead of a blessing. Now, 7 days later, like I said, Moses goes back to Pharaoh and like, "Hey, bro, God telling me to still let my people go." Pharaoh like, "Nah, we good." Like, "Nah, I don't, nah." Because I mean, think about it. The Israelites were working for Pharaoh for free at this time. Like, this is free labor. There's a reason why I have what I have. You're not about to take them. So God's like, "All right, tomorrow I'm a hit another plague." and it hits the plague of Heket. Now, Heket was the Egyptian goddess of fertility, childbirth, and new life, depicted with a head of a frog. She was believed to start the process of forming a baby in the womb, breathe life in the child during birth, protect women during labor, guaranteed fruitfulness in the family and land. Remember, at this time, having the more the merrier, right? Nowadays, we like, I don't know if I'm going to have kids or not. But back in the day, no, you wanted a family. You were considered blessed. You had a certain currency about you. You had a certain honor about you when you had a family. And then also, Heket would influence the timing and ease of delivery. This is what they believe. So it was so important for them because during this time, a lot of women would die from hemorrhaging, infection, breach of pregnancy, dehydration, or just simply a lack of medical knowledge. We wasn't going to Kaiser or, Riverside Medical to be like, oh, the baby's coming. No, the baby is here. And whatever came with that came with that. So they prayed to Heket for protection of these things. And they worship her every year that the Nile flooded. And frogs would appear. And frogs were a sign of fertility and signs of let's just say fertility. So the frogs normally when the Nile would flood, they would come naturally, right? So they would just kind of stay down by the Nile River, or they would stay like close, to the grass and stuff in the area. And it represented, like I said, fertility, abundance. So when they saw frogs, they're like, oh yes, this is Heket. Like, oh, thank Heket. Not thank God. They're thanking Heket. And they would pray to her. They would give her oils, incense, milk, honey. And even during labor, the midwives would pray over the babies for their wombs to be open or for them to have a speedy delivery. And they really believe that she breathed life into the baby. Now, what did God do? Frog infestation. God did a frog infestation. He tells Moses, command Pharaoh to let my people go. Let them go. God will send a plague of frogs over the whole land. I'm about to, Pharaoh's like, excuse me, Moses is telling Pharaoh, God is about to send all these frogs. And Pharaoh still refuses. But mind you, it wasn't normal. Remember, I told you when the Nile flooded, normally the frogs would just stay down by the Nile. Oh no, they was going in the homes, the beds, the ovens, the kneading bowls. And when they died, they stunk up the land. But you know what's so cold? Because frogs represented the god Heket, it was illegal to kill frogs. So these frogs are in their house. They can't do nothing about it. They sleep and frogs is just ribbiting everywhere. And they can't do anything because it was illegal to kill them. They thought if you killed a frog, it would anger the gods. So people stepped around frogs with caution. But what do you do now when you have an infestation? This shows like absolute humiliation. They should have felt absolutely humiliated because the God that they served, Heket, where's Heket at? Because what's going on with all of this? So God came directly against Heket. That is the second plague. The third plague, Geb. He's the god of the earth. Geb was believed to control the earth's stability, soil fertility and crop growth, earthquakes and natural balance, the boundary between the living and the dead, the dust from which God and humans were formed. So Geb was literally like the dirt, like the dirt that you walk on. And people are like, I'm grounding. Like Geb is the dirt. And they worshiped him because they believed that he was the dirt, the dust, the soil, the ground beneath their feet. They felt like was a living God. And it was normalized because everyone lived and died on that land. Their homes, their farms, and where they were even buried was on that land. And they felt like Geb was blessing them with that land. They also worshiped him by bowing to the ground, placing hands on the soil, touching dirt to the forehead, singing hymns to the earth. So what did God do? He sent gnats or lice. God tells Moses to have Aaron strike the dust of the ground with his staff, and the dust turns into swarms of gnats that cover all the people and animals. The Egyptian magicians try to duplicate this miracle, but they can't. They say this is the finger of God. But still, Pharaoh's heart remains hardened. He's like, nah, y'all still can't go. Like, but the thing about Pharaoh, which I failed to mention, every time God would do something and Moses would go back to Pharaoh, Pharaoh would be like, okay, I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm gonna let y'all go. But can you just tell God to get rid of the frogs? Can you tell him to get rid of the gnats and the lice? And Moses was like, all right, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna pray to God that he removes it. And if you don't do what you need to do, he gonna come back for you. And pray, no, I got you, I got you. And every time Moses will go back and pray, God, please release this gnats of lice or remove these frogs and the other plagues that we'll see, God would do it. And then when Pharaoh got comfortable, Pharaoh was like, nah, y'all can't go nowhere. Because guess what? The gnats are gone. The frogs are gone. Everything looks back to normal. How many times does something happen in our life and we're all up in arms and we're like, okay, God, I promise I'll never do it again. Oh, God, I promise I'll never go there again. Or God, I promise, I promise, I promise, I promise. And then when everything goes back to normal, you forget. Let's be honest. So, why did God target the god Geb, with gnats or lice? God struck the dust, which was Geb's domain. That's where he lived, right? So God like pulling all that dust up. This is my dust. This showed the Egyptians that Geb couldn't control the earth. Geb couldn't stop the pests. The earth is not a god. It's his creation. Why are we worshiping the creation and not the creator? Who put the dust here? God owns the dust in the land. He made sure of that. And the magician saw that, uh-oh, we not even able to do that one. What trick is that one? What book is that one in? This is a finger of God. He talking to Pharaoh. Yo, Pharaoh, like we kind of tapped out of stuff. We not gonna be able to, you gonna let him go or like what's up? Pharaoh, nah. But then Moses, okay, I'm gonna let y'all go. Just you know what? Just take the men with you. Y'all can go into the wilderness because they had to go 3 days into the wilderness. Just take the men. Moses was like, nah, God want everybody. Wouldn't let him go. Fourth plague, Capri. He's the god of rebirth and transformation. Now, Capri was an Egyptian god of rebirth, renewal, creation, and destiny, depicted with the head of a beetle or a dung beetle. Now, this beetle represent new beginnings, the rising sun, the cycle of life, transformation, resurrection, and emergence. They literally believe that there was a huge beetle in the universe outside of the earth rolling earth across the sky. Kind of how like a beetle does a dung, right? They believe that there was a beetle in the universe doing this to earth. They thank Capri for waking up the world, bringing new possibilities, restoring strength, renewing life each day. If Capri failed, the sun wouldn't rise and creation would collapse. Capri was associated with self-creation and transformation. Capri was associated with self-creation and transformation. One more for the people in the back. Capri was associated with self-creation and transformation. While we look at these things and we say, y'all out here worshiping beetles, are we not in a society that says get it how you get it? And I gotta do what's for me, regardless of you. I don't care about nobody else around me. I'm self-made. Are we not in a self-made society? And they worship Capri they would literally wear these dung beetles on them. They would go to war with a beetle. Oh, I couldn't do it. Oh, I would have been like, Lord, oh, I don't want no bugs on me. They literally wore the beetle because and they felt like it helped them in war. It helped them. They would inscribe the beetles on the tombs. because they felt like it represented renewal or energy or purpose or destiny. And Capri was so important because the Egyptians believed Pharaoh's heart would be weighed after death. And the beetle protected his heart. So Capri, they thought Capri would help guide Pharaoh into new life and resurrection. What did God do? He sent the flies. Oh, he sent the flies. God told Moses, warn Pharaoh again, go back to bruh and tell him that I'm about to send a swarm of flies. And when Pharaoh refuses, God sends dense swarms of flies throughout Egypt. But this time, God protected where the children of Israel were. They were in a land called Goshen. Okay. And no flies were over in Goshen. It was just in this part of Egypt. Like, no, Goshen was cool. Like, they out here living. They out here making their mortar, like, whew. Egypt over here letting have it. Now, why did God target Capri with swarms of flies that held the land? Flies replaced the beetles with what they thought was purity with filth. Flies are nasty. Let a fly land on you on your burger right now. Come on, Superfly. Let a fly land on your burger right now. Ugh! So imagine infestation. They represented filth, contamination, disease, chaos, and they were everywhere. God made a distinction between Egypt and Israel as well, because Israel, they ain't got a fly in sight. And Egypt over here, imagine, you know how one fly get on your nerve. Imagine, I, c- I couldn't do it. So the magicians is like, hey, Pharaoh, we need to get up out of this. Can you let these people go? And then Pharaoh's like, all right, I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm gonna let y'all go. You can take the kids, you can take the men, but just leave the cattle here. Just leave me the cattle. Moses was like, I can't even leave a hoof here. Everything has to go. So Pharaoh's heart is then again hardened. Pharaoh is some stubborn, prideful son of a. So the fifth plague hits, and this is Apis and Hathor, which represented strength. I think that's supposed to say fertility and economic power. Sorry. So it was a sense. It was a symbol of strength, protection, royal authority. So you see this bull. This is an Apis bull. This is a real life bull. Um, and anytime an Apis bull was born, they would literally worship the bull. Like literally worship the bull. Like not even like a statue of the bull, like the actual bull. And it represents strength, like I said, protection. He was believed to be a living, breathing manifestation of a god, not just a statue. Now we have a god and an animal. And anytime one would die, they would preserve it. They would take really good care of it. And then once another Apis bull came, we have another Apis god, right? Now, Hathor on the right, she represented motherhood, nurturing, joy, prosperity, fertility, love, domestic peace. So a lot of people would come and pray to Hathor for their livestock. So think of it like this, like if in today's time it's like, oh, I need a little bit more money in my savings account. Actually, forget the savings. Can you just put it in the checking? Can you cash at me? Can you Zelle me? That's what she was known for, livestock. And also, she was known for like being a blessing. So a lot of married couples would come to her to ask for a happy marriage, or if they were having conception issues, they would come to her. Um, she was just a blessing. What did God do? My goodness. Death of all the livestock. So that's like saying, I put $20,000 in your account yesterday. You're negative 20,000 today. Death of all your livestock. There was a severe pestilence that struck Egypt's livestock in the field. God commanded Moses to tell Pharaoh again, let my people go, or I'm coming after their livestock. Everything that they have. So this is their currency. This is their money. This is their way of life. This is how they eat. This is how they trade. This is how they sell. This is what makes them who they are. Pharaoh like, nah, we good. We good. None of that. This ain't phasing me. The next day, God sends the plague, and all the Egyptians' livestock die. But none of the animals that belong to the children of Israel were even harmed. So Pharaoh sends officials to check on them and be like, "Hey, go check over there on the Israelites because they real quiet over here. There's a lot going on. What they over there doing?" So he tells his people, "Go check on them. They over there living good. They got all this stuff over there still." And you would think, but what do we know, Pharaoh? His heart still remains stubborn. So God targeted Apis and Harthur to show that he is in charge of everything. He's your resource, not these gods that you're praying to. I'm your strength. I'm your power. But God, right in front of Egypt, is literally tearing down all their gods, left to right, left to right, left to right. All right, we on plague 6. Sechem and Isis. Lionhead is Sechem, and goddess of plague, sickness, and healing. So she was known to like stop diseases. She healed the sick, protected Egypt from, any epidemic, and she guarded the king in battle to make sure he was healthy. She was feared and she was worshipped. And the priests at this time were considered some of the most powerful healers, but they weren't like healers in a way of like God. They were healers of sorcery. And then Isis on the right, she was the most widely worshipped goddess. She was associated with magic and sorcery, healing spells, protection from injury, and maternal care and restoration. So, at this time, diseases were common in Egypt. They didn't have amoxicillin, they didn't have penicillin. So they get skin diseases, parasites, infections, boils, rashes, plagues for the climate. No modern medicine. So they would have to go to the priests, which were considered healers or ritual magicians, um, and spiritual physicians. So they would pray to these two for healing. What did God do? He sent the boils. Oh my goodness. He goes to Pharaoh and say, "Hey, look, let my people go." Pharaoh like, "Nah, we good. I can't afford it." And so God instructs Moses to take a handful of soot and toss it in the air in front of Pharaoh. So it's like from the furnace, like the I don't want to say sand, but like, let's just say sand from the furnace. Tosses it up, everybody's covered in boils. The magicians can't even stand in front of Moses no more. We got to go because everybody's covered in boils now. We have to go. And what's so cold is that remember I told you the priests were like the healers. The priests had a very strict regimen when it came to their appearance and how they cared themselves. They had to shave their bodies. They bathed multiple times a day. They avoided anything unclean, but now they're covered in all these painful sores. So I'm going to you to ask you to pray for me, to Secament and Isis, and you covered in boils. So who is Secament and Isis? Because we all covered in boils. They didn't come save us. Dismantling every god one at a time, one at a time. Seventh plague hits. Nut, Shoot, and Tefnut, the goddess of the sky and protection. So these gods, they literally felt were the atmosphere. So this is controlled by the sky, shielded the earth. They felt like it was like Egypt's mother, like covered Egypt. They controlled the stars. They prevented chaos from entering the world. So wind, breathing, mist, rain, dew, humidity, air moisture, anything that has to do with the sky. The Weather Channel, when they tell you what the weather is going to be tomorrow, that's Nut, Shoe, and Tefnut. Okay. And they would do sky reading, star mapping, cosmic prayers. Does it sound like anything? Where my Leos at? No, see, look, almost caught you up. Almost got you. Offering of bread, incense, oils, water, milk, oil. But the priests would have star patterns and they would look at the stars and this is what's going to happen and this was going to go on. What did God do? He sent hail and fire. You think you control the air? You think you control the moisture? You think you control the rain? Now, what's so cold about this is that where Egypt was, hail and fire, that was unlikely. Like they did not live in a climate where that would have happened. Now we live in California, most of us. We understand, yeah, hell, I know what hell is. But no, not this. Remember, Egypt at its minimum is a desert. And the hail struck every man, beast, every plant in the field, and broke every tree. Only, again, where the Israelites were in Goshen, there was no hail. They all here chilling. Well, they was probably still not chilling, but they was doing better off than the Egyptians, right? God showed that he controlled the atmosphere. Y'all over here worshiping nut shoe. Where they at now? And Moses told the people, like, God's gonna send this. And some of the people was like, yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know. They must have been fry short of a happy meal because how did God do all of this stuff and y'all still don't think that God is going to do it? Like, I don't get it. After the blood, the now, I'm out. I'm out. But we got this far and y'all still don't believe it. So the people that left their cattle out, they got obliterated. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. They died. The hail struck them all. Now we're on to the eighth plague, Seth. He's the god of chaos, storms, and destruction. Seth was one of the most ancient and complex gods in Egypt. He was a god of storms, the desert, disorder, chaos, destruction, foreign threats, protection from chaotic forces. He was feared and respected because if you mess with Seth, he could either take you out or he could take somebody else out for you. He was your guardian, like he was your armor in a sense, right? So he either for you or he against you. He controlled violent weather. He repelled foreign invaders. He kept chaos at bay. He enforced certain boundaries in nature. He was the one that was like, if we're going to war, we taking Seth with us because Seth about to tear some stuff up. So what did God do? He sent the locusts. Now, the thing about locusts is that locusts, they eat everything. Locusts will eat everything. They literally come through and shave everything down. So remember, God already sent hail and fire, which destroyed everything. But now the locusts are coming to eat everything that was still left. Where's Seth at? Where's Seth at? Tell him he might want to get here because the locust is on the way. The locust is on the way. And and again, like I said, Moses goes to Pharaoh. Hey, bro, like God's not playing with you. And now Pharaoh's officials are begging him to let the Israelites go. Like, please go. And Pharaoh offers a partial promise, and nah, we need everybody to go. The children, the women, the men, the cattle. Like, we probably gonna need some of that gold that you got on you too, and that silver. But we'll get to that in a minute. So God sends locusts after this because locusts now eats everything. It destroys everything. Ninth plague, we almost there, y'all. Ra, the sun god and supreme deity. Ra was the supreme sun god, the most important and powerful deity in the entire Egyptian, like their beliefs. They believed that Ra created the world, gave life to everything, ruled over all the gods, empowered Pharaoh, governed the passage of time, sustained crops, heat, and light, brought order to creation. He wasn't just a god, he was literally the centerpiece of their religion. So, you know how we call God Yahweh? That's Ra. That's their Ra. They believe that he traveled in the sky in a solar boat, bringing light by day and victory over darkness each night. So this man fighting every night, how exhausting. So they think every morning when the sun rises, oh, Ra done fought and won another one. And then at night they like, oh, I hope tomorrow Ra can, win. So he had victory over the dark and victory over the light. He won in battles. I think y'all can guess at this time what God sent. Can y'all guess? Somebody come off mute. What do you think God did to go against Ra? What do you think God did? Remember, he's the God
Brought
over
the darkness.
the darkness. Let there be no light. God reversed it. Remember in the beginning, let there be light. Let there be no light. A thick darkness covered Egypt for 3 days. No one could see or move. Now remember, they didn't have Edison. We didn't have the power company, y'all. When it's dark, it's dark. I might have a few candles, but I didn't have no light. I couldn't flip on a light switch. And they said it was so dark that you could feel the fear, the oppression, the spiritual heaviness. And everybody was disoriented because, hold on, Ra's supposed to be fighting these battles. The sun ain't came out in 3 days. But meanwhile, over in Israelite, it's light. They got light over there. Over in Goshen, it's still light over there. But we in the dark. God said, I'm the creator of this. So we're Ra. It's like that movie. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Helen, Ra, are you here? Can you make it light? Ra gone. Ra is gone. So God came against that. And then last, Pharaoh. We all know Pharaoh. Remember, Pharaoh represented a status like a presidency, a king, right? So Pharaoh was just not a political leader. He was considered the ultimate divine figure in Egypt as like a tangible evidence of a god. They believe he was the son of Ra. Ra is gone. So who is Pharaoh? Because Ra ain't showed up. Your pops ain't came through, right? They believe that he was a mediator between gods and humanity. He was the divine ruler who maintained cosmic order. He wasn't just a king. He was literally a god in human form, like literally a god in human form. He represented authority, government, absolute power. And they worshiped him because they believed that he was the physical representation of a god. Like it don't get no closer than this. And they believe anything that Pharaoh said, they felt like he had divine power. He controlled the justice system. He determined punishment and mercy. And his presence brought blessings. It was normalized because if you were to reject Pharaoh, you were literally rejecting the religion. It's that deep. So if you didn't believe in Pharaoh, you didn't, like, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're not a Christian. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, it was like that deep. It wasn't just like, oh, Pharaoh. No, like, if you did not believe in Pharaoh, you literally did not believe in Egypt's religion. What God do? He said, all right, this is going to be, after this one, this gonna be the one that Pharaoh's gonna be like, all right, he gonna tell y'all to get about my town. He gonna tell y'all, please leave. Take everybody with you, take everything with you. God announces one final plague that will force Pharaoh to release Israel, the death of the very firstborn in Egypt. Now we think the firstborn, like you had a child. No, of everything, even cattle. Poor little lamb, poor little cow, little cow. Every firstborn died. But remember Passover, right? Everybody's familiar. Well, may not. But the Passover was when God said, put the blood over your doorposts. And when I send to kill the firstborn, whoever has the blood over their doorposts, they'll be passed. They'll be passed over. So before God sent this one, he having a feast. He like, hey, look, you need to get this much food for each family, only enough food that you can eat. You need to roast the whole animal, everything. Don't leave nothing out. Y'all need to eat it. So they had like a celebratory feast before this happened. Put the blood over their door. They said when God came over to kill the firstborn, they said it was a sound that will never be heard and have never been heard at that time. He said at least one person died in each household. And mind you, Pharaoh's son was next in charge. His firstborn son, he was considered also a divine ruler, and he died. Pharaoh believed that he owned Israel, that He defined their identity. He set their value. He controlled their labor. He controlled their future. He tried to decide their fate. Kill all the boys. Okay, well then drown them. God's like, well, let me show you who I am. And God took the firstborn of each one. So at this point, Pharaoh's like, y'all gotta go. Y'all have to go. And this is when the children of Israel were actually able to be released. So now we look at Egypt. And I want to point something out after we walk through all of this. Did you notice a pattern of anything when it came to the gods? When it came to the gods, they had to continue to do sacrifices. They had to continue to give to the gods to get from the gods. Sacrificing, offering, chants, milk, honey, oil. They had to continue to feed these gods in hopes that the gods would continue doing what they were going to do. But when God stepped in and dismantled everything and all the systems failed, it showed Egypt like everything we've been worshiping has been counterfeit power, right? God doesn't say, now we do understand when you had to submit something in the First Testament, Old Testament, as a sacrifice. We understand that. But God doesn't make us buy his love. He doesn't make us buy his protection. We're not, y'all woke up this morning and thank God for waking up, but did you thank him for keeping the moon in the sky? Did you thank him for keeping the sun up? Did you thank him for not having a star come and crash down in your house or your place? We don't think about those things because God just said he'll do it. We don't, when it rains, we don't get nervous and be like, it's gonna flood again. No, he already said he's not gonna, he already made a covenant with us. Israel, and we just learned about this, Israel dealt in contracts, right? There's a difference between a contract and a covenant. A contract is, I'm going to do everything for you until, right? So, hey, I'm going to give you this, but if you don't do this, I'm going to take it back. Covenant with God is, I'm going to do this, and even if you don't hold up to your end of the bargain, I'm still going to keep my word. Now, I don't really have time to go through these, but you can screenshot these, and it's just really just saying God doesn't require endless work to earn his favor. God rejects systems of heavy burdens. Salvation is not earned, but it's given, okay? And idols make promises that cannot be delivered. When you worship counterfeit power, it starts off great. You go see the palm reader. You go see them. They're probably going to tell you something good. But where's it going to end you at? Where is it going to leave you at? So, idols, as we look at these places, and I can hear my mama now because I'm going to call her. And she's going to be like, now, why would they worship a frog head? Why would they worship a bull? Why would they worship a lion head? But look what we worship. Look what we worship. I think that's a Virgo sign in the top left. I don't know. We worship money. We worship pornography. We worship our careers. We worship our addictions. We worship our government. We worship validation from other people. We worship our anxiety. We have crystals. We have chakras. We have sage. We worship fear. So we're not too different from these people. While our gods don't look like lions or frog heads, our gods look like currency. Our God looks like lust. Our God looks like desires that aren't of God. So take a mental note of this. So ask yourself, what counterfeit power have you trusted? What modern idols have you bowed to? And where have you expected creation to do what only the creator can do? Because the same God who dismantled Egypt's idols still dismantles ours. And he doesn't do it to shame us, to belittle us, to make us feel less than, but he does it to remind us that he is still God and he is still in control. There's no God like our God. Absolutely no God like our God. And nothing you can do to turn away the love that he has for you. There's no distance you can go where he can't pull you back. There's nothing that you can put yourself in that he can't free you from. And that's what he showed Egypt, and that's what he's showing us today. So, in closing, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this teaching tonight. We thank you, Lord, for teaching us about the 10 plagues and why you sent them, God. We thank you for showing us that you are God of everything, Lord, and that we don't have to work for your love. We don't have to work for salvation, but you have freely given it to us, Lord. So we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. And even in our day to day, when we worship counterfeit power, which we are able to understand, you said in your word that we're able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think according to the power that works in us. So if you work in us, we can do far more greater things. We don't have to stop at what the world says we can have because you have much for us, Lord. So forgive us for worshiping idols. Forgive us for worshiping our job. Forgive us for worshiping money. Forgive us for even worshiping our stability and not being able to step out when you ask us to say yes, Lord. We worship being comfortable. Forgive us, Lord. And let us hear you even clearer now, Lord. Let us submit only to you, Lord, because we know with what you have, we don't have to rob anybody to get it, and we don't have to run in fear to keep it, Lord. It comes with peace, Lord. It comes with abundance, God. So we thank you for everything you do and you continue to do. We love you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Amen.